think Sandra's here. Should we go let her in?
Yeah. Hey, how's it going? Come on
Not
in.
bad. It's always meant to come back to this space. Done a few production here with theater companies. Last one was with Unsettled. I always loved the mural. Danse, my name is Sandra Pronteau. I am here today for you to share my story, and I did this by choice. Okay, Rats, we're going to go to one of his spots.
My mom is somebody who does carry forth advocacy work in this time that she's in. Particularly, it does aid in what she's gone through, and I think it does help her continue on with the healing journey in terms of being able to support other folks that maybe didn't have a similar support that she maybe needed then.
She's thoughtful, incredibly tenacious. She's someone who is kind of no nonsense as well, but also a real advocate for people in the community, especially people who struggle with different disabilities. Just a strong voice.
Sandra just emerged as a natural leader. You know, that she has a quiet leadership approach, not one that's forceful, but one that's very strong. And, you know, Sandra can hold a room.
I had to go through a lot of hurdles, and a lot of them got knocked over. But you know what? I kept going back and I kept picking them up, and I kept trekking along. When we topple and we fall down, we keep rising. I come from a very impoverished family. We lived in a very remote community where there's no water, no electricity, and therefore my mom, my father lived off the land. They hunt, they trapped, they fished. Everything they did, they used the resource of the land. We went to this place in St. James, and I met this family, and my mom said to me, "My girl, I'll be right back. I'm going to go to the candy store and I'll bring you back some candies. Just wait for me." You know, and I waited. Sadly, she never came back. I had no idea. I actually was really sick, and I had no idea. Sadly to say, that was the beginning of me experiencing being sexually abused by my foster brother, who was 14 at the time. And I was only 6 years old. I was sad. I remember being at 9 wanting to run away, and I didn't want to live. I didn't want to be with this family. I was full of rage. I was angry at being brown. I couldn't understand why everybody hated me. Like, why couldn't I be like everybody else? Why couldn't I be normal? That was taken away. So it's another form of post-era residential school of how the 60s groups did damage, emotional, psychological, physical, mental abuse. All happens. Anything to break the spirit of a child. And I'm a product of that. And this one here, you put little dog treats in here. One of his very first toys. And this guy. 2 first toys. Okay, I gotta do my work. Come on. It's from the city of Vancouver about the accessibility in emergency situations. Me in Winnipeg, my foster mom, Barbara.
My name is Barbara Nepanek, and my traditional name is Ninjubinesikwe, which means Two Thunderbird Woman. And my late husband and I were foster parents to Sandra. And we already had, I think, 3 children at that point. And she lived with us until she was 17. At that time, there was a real shortage of homes, especially Indigenous homes. There was no foster children. There was no foster parents. So they really wanted us to foster Sandra because she was an awkward age for her to be placed in a home. Not because she had medical needs and stuff like that, and she still required a lot of attention. So she moved in with us, and she was treated like any other child that, like my girls were.
When I met Barb and Clarence, they showed like different views of that. So I did graduate. I did have a good job for a while. I worked for a couple of years. And I was pregnant with my first child. The doctor tried to tell me I couldn't have kids. I'm not going to get into that too much, but I stood up and said, no, it's my body. I am going to go through this pregnancy. No, like I said, I've proven to myself and to medicals, officials, they don't always have the answers.
My mom and I were very much like, as you know, the classic best friend combo. Or a fond memory that I have with her and from having time with her as a young girl was her reading to me almost every night and singing lullabies at night as well when I was going to bed. The book that she would often read was a many, but one particular one that I do recall had lessons and teachings in it around taking care of myself as a young girl, as a young female growing up, and being aware of my surroundings in terms of potential predators. With her own disability that she carries, which is a scoliosis, or which is, suffers in her spine and down into her legs. With what she's gone through, I can't imagine the pain, the hurt, the struggles, the hurdles, the many different things that she's had to overcome outside of her disability, being an Indigenous woman, being able to engage with other folks. I understood my mom also had her own battles with various addictions, whether it was alcohol, maybe cigarette smoking, whatever the case may have been. And that changed later on when I believe it had to do with her own trauma that she had carried.
I'm not going to lie, I did also have another life. I've worked, but I had a straight life. So I was living two lives. I was a good worker, and then at nighttime, I was a whole different person. Right after the Olympics, I went through a crazy phase then. I did something I'm not very proud of, and I had to forgive myself. My children had to forgive me, and I fell into addiction. I fell back into my old ways again. So after I got out of that depression, I was seeking harm reduction, and I started connecting with some group in the downtown east side. And then I met some folks, and then I found out that there was a theater production coming up. And I thought, you know what? Theater, right?
I met Sandra Pronteau through a big project that we were doing in the Downtown East Side called the Downtown East Side Community Play, which was back in 2003. This is a very large production that was produced in our community, driven by the Carnegie Community Center. And they wanted to do a big production that brought together the various neighborhoods of the community, the various cultures of the community, the various people of the community. I would describe Sandra as very spunky and speaks from her heart. She has a really good heart. The growth that I've seen in Sandra over the last 20 years is a continued involvement in the arts and a continued involvement in the life of the community.
I knew that when I got into that would change my life. Because that therapeutic, that you're learning hidden talents. I mean, I'm not really a singer, but I actually sang in front of 300 people solo.
The arts have a real strong ability to change the dial and make social change. And I've seen that so dramatically through my own experience of working in the community here in the Downtown East Side. And my experience with Sandra is that despite everything that she went through, She's carrying a lot of love and care for people.
So after I did that production, I've done a few more after that. I've done some with David Diamond of the headline theater production of the Press. At the time, it was called Practicing Democracy. Then I did another one called After Homelessness. Then I helped out some other projects with David Diamond. And yeah, it's been fun. I didn't know I would get into theater. It just landed on my lap and I said, hey, I'll give it a shot. And then after that, I did Theater Terrific. I've done a few there. A couple of production. One I remember called Working. Then there was another one we did. And then the last one I did was called Unsettled.
I met Sandra back in 2011. She and a group of women started coming to Mission Possible, and were part of a new social enterprise that we were kind of just getting off the ground. It was one where we were collecting used bar soaps and bottled amenities from the hospitality industry. And so Sandra came to us, and she really demonstrated a real leadership ability. The woman who was running the program at the time really saw that in her, recognized it, and was able to help her move into a leadership role. My name is Matt Smedley. I'm the Executive Director and CEO at Mission Possible. Mission Possible is an organization trying to provide real opportunities for people in the downtown east side of Vancouver to really be able to move their lives forward through engaging employment and support services. Just living in this community comes with all kinds of stigma and makes it really hard for people to feel accepted or like they belong outside of this community.
There still needs to be a lot of education that needs to be addressed. The ableism attitude is still out there. That people still carry on thinking like, why are we hiring this person? Later on, I realized after I left my employment that I actually knew that there needs to be more work out there to shaking up those people that have biased attitude towards people with disability or any kind of impairment. Sadly, people down here come from all walks of life. But some of these people had like amazing professional jobs. They don't come down here, because they want to be down here. Everybody has a story that comes down here. And I don't mean downtown east side. I'm talking about anywhere you are in society. It could be your next door neighbor. You could be out in the country and not know what's happening with your next door neighbor.
When somebody's experiencing a disability, they're often excluded from opportunities. So many opportunities that could happen if employers were intentionally inclusive and were able to just have some nuances in policies and things like that really opened up the door for people. Disability and poverty are often linked together, and that's really the experience of a lot of people in this community.
My mom was very much active in the community, went to school, I think she worked at various places, was very much always busy. Her approach to needing to understand the greater issues that are around in the world, as opposed to maybe just turning the other cheek and not paying attention to items. She hits items head on.
Me and my daughter again. My oldest son, me and Campbell River, fooling around with taking funny photos. And my kid's dad was taking a picture of us, Campbell River. I'm also the kind of person that I always put my own needs on the back burner. That all I wanted to do was be successful and show that I am worthy and I can work like everybody else. I do recall I did try to promote being a disabled advocate for my previous job. That I was trying to sell that idea to them, saying, hey, this is what we need. We don't have it down here. They didn't seem to take it seriously. I was willing to go to school. I was willing to get trained. Like, I knew they had money. They were willing to, like, none of that was, like, even, they weren't motivated or keen about it. Whenever we have something that kind of, like, put a block there and we stumble over it, we have to kind of get up and try and repair that block before we can move ahead. And so that block, I knew I had to like rebuild that block and say, okay, I am going to go take the gender-based violence course, which was offered. And that was another healing journey of mine. I met other women like me who were also dealing with stuff. And when did that for 3 months. And after that, I worked on my own self. And then I realized, you know what? I got connected with a group called Kuriko. And Kuriko is like a local group. And then I got connected to Inclusion BC. And that's when I met some of the folks. And I realized, you know what? It's where I need to be. And not only that, I learned that nobody should be undermined, disrespected, and I love what I do today. It took me many, many years to learn and come to balance. How am I going to be happy in my life? How am I going to get over my bitterness, hatred, anger towards society? I learned to be an advocate. I learned to like stand up for what I know, what I want in life. I'm worth more than this. I don't need to live up to the name that people try to label me as. That's my healing, and that's what I want to share. Don't live up to what society portrays you to be. Be the person you want to be. People that are the messenger in society to help and share, not to judge who we are. Take the time to know us.
DAWN is an acronym for the Disabled Women's Network of Canada. I think especially because Sandra is so generous with sharing her experiences and her stories, she's become a very powerful advocate from all those places. The place of being a woman, a mother, of being somebody who lives with a disability and being Indigenous.
Sandra's a survivor. This good heart, this strong spirit that has enabled her to keep on going, to keep positive, to keep stepping forward, to raise a family, to have all these kids, to advocate, to work, to survive. It's an incredible story.
I'm a mom. I'm a Kokum. I'm intelligent. I have a big heart. I'm a survivor. And I love life today.